Welcome to the True Man Podcast. This is an invitation to radical reconstruction of a man's masculine heart and soul in a place of safe community where we dare to ask questions deep seated inside a man and explore ways to help you become a better man, a better son, a better dad, and a better spouse. Well, welcome on back to the True Man Podcast, where we're helping you build the value system that will last beyond your lifetime. The American Family Value Summit coming your way soon. Boy, I'm excited at how things are pulling together with that, along with the True Man community. Boy, you are going to be excited when you're able to get your hands on this summit. We are really putting together some amazing speakers. I have had a blast talking with these great men, and I cannot wait to get this out to the world. Just a few of the things we're working on here in the True Man community. In fact, I wish there were about 4 more of me so I could get more done during the day. So how's your spring going? March Madness is up on us. It's tournament time. Boy, isn't this a fun time of year. I just enjoy it when we get to this point in the year. The sun stays out a little longer. The flowers start to bloom. Everything starts to warm up, and away we go, heading towards those summer months. I know some of you are going, Mike, that seems way off. It'll be here before you know it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on here in the True Man community. If you get a chance, go out to truemanlifecoaching.com. That is my website. You can, of course, get a hold of this podcast on there. You can find my books on there, as well as the calendar. You can get on my calendar. We love it when people get on my calendar, and I get to talk with everybody. And you can sign up for the newsletter. Do that. I encourage that. And we're going to get that thing out to you and give you some great True Man tips of the day. So where are we here on the True Man Podcast? Well, a couple of weeks ago on episode 228, we talked about common sense, courage, and the call back to God, family, and country. So critically important, right? And then last week, I talked about building the family one dinner table at a time. Well, let's talk about that a little bit more this week. So you get to the dinner table and what? Well, let's talk about the lost conversations that don't go on. How about the art of conversation? You want to have the art of conversation when you're sitting at your dinner table. That's how you teach your family how to think, isn't it? So let's talk more about that today. Something important, I believe, is absolutely disappearing from our culture. Not slowly. In fact, I would dare say it's happening rapidly. It's the ability to have real conversations. Not a comment section, not a debate stage, not a shouting match. No, we're talking about real conversations here. You know, the kind where people actually use their ears and listen. That is why God gave us ears, isn't it? Where people think, use your head. Where people ask questions and where people wrestle with ideas. That's actually a good thing. And if we're being honest, the breakdown of conversation, well, it's just not happening in politics or on social media. No, it is growing far beyond that in a very epidemic and bad way. Folks, it is happening right in our own homes. Families sit together but rarely talk deeply. Their phones replace dialogue, screens replace questions, and noise replaces reflection, doesn't it? Are you experiencing that in your own home? And the result is a generation of young people who have strong opinions, but very little understanding. They can repeat what they've heard, but they often struggle to think through what they believe in it. And man, this is where fathers had got to step up. Because one of the most important responsibilities a father has is this: simply teaching his family how to think. Not what to think, how to think. And this is why conversations matter. You see, God designed human beings for dialogue, didn't he? That's why he gave us a mouth and a lips, right? So we could talk, a voice. The entire Bible is filled with conversations, isn't it? God speaking to Adam, Moses speaking with God in the wilderness, Jesus asking questions of his disciple. How about Paul reasoning with people in the marketplace? You know, faith itself grows through conversation. Truth is refined through questions, and wisdom grows through listening. So Proverbs 18, verse 13 says this: to answer before listening, that is folly and shame. Think about how relevant that is today. You know, most people don't listen anymore. They wait, and then they wait for their turn to speak, don't they? They wait for their turn to correct. They wait for their turn to fix. They wait for their turn to win. But wisdom requires listening first. And the home is where children should learn that. So, how do they learn that? Well, that dinner table that we talked about on last week's podcast, that becomes the classroom, doesn't it? So, again, in the last episode, we talked about rebuilding culture one dinner table at a time. But let's take that one step deeper. So, the dinner table isn't just where families connect, it's where minds are shaped. Now, think about what happens there. Children hear their parents talk about the day. They hear how problems are handled. They hear how disagreements are managed. And quietly, without realizing it, they are learning how to think. Can you believe it? You're actually a role model. How about that? Now, if a father reacts emotionally to everything, children learn reaction. Now, if a father speaks respectfully about people he disagrees with, well, children learn maturity. And if a father asks a thoughtful question, children learn curiosity. You see, the dinner table becomes a training ground, not for perfect answers. Let me get this straight. Come on, let's get it out there. We don't always get perfection, but it does become a training ground for thoughtful minds. So let me share something from my own life. You know, there was a time when I realized that many of our family conversations were shallow. How was your day? Good. What did you do? School. Conversation over. And I remember thinking to myself, there has to be more than this. In fact, I remember at one point, we had a prayer dice, and we would actually roll it out on the table, and it would ask a question just to get the ball rolling. So if I want my family to think deeply about life, faith, and responsibility, it's all about asking better questions. Doesn't matter how you do it, really. You just want to start asking better questions. Get the ball rolling. And this is where I experiment a little bit. Okay, so I talked about the dice, but instead of the same questions, I might ask things like, what challenged you today? What made you laugh today? Did someone get treated unfairly today? How did it affect you? What's something you learned today that surprised you? Now, at first, of course, these answers were short, but over time, something shifted. The conversations grew, the stories came out, the ideas were explored, and I realized something really important. Kids often want to talk. They just need someone willing to lead the conversations, to get the ball rolling, to really drill down a little deeper. You know, Jesus was the master at asking questions, one of the most overlooked leadership tools in the Bible is questions and the questions that Jesus asked. The funny part of it is Jesus knew the answer, but he asked the questions anyway because he was really trying to build community, really trying to build relationships. Jesus asked questions constantly, not because he lacked knowledge, but because questions really awaken thinking. So in Luke 2, when Jesus was only 12 years old, he sat among the teachers in the temple, and everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. In Luke 2. But how did that moment begin? With questions like in Luke chapter 2, verse 46, it says, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and doing what? Asking them questions. You see, Jesus modeled something profound: listening, curiosity, thoughtful inquiry. If the Son of God asks questions, fathers should too, don't you think? Now, there is a danger here. The danger of opinion without thinking here, okay? We want to build thoughtful leaders and ask thoughtful questions without opinion. We live in an age where opinions get formed instantly, right? A headline appears, a clip goes viral, and within seconds, people declare certainty. But thinking, well, that requires really thoughtful patience. It requires humility. It requires asking, is this true? Is this the full story? What am I missing? A father's job is not to shield his children from ideas. They will go searching if you do. A father's job is to help them evaluate ideas, to weigh them, to test them, to understand them. If you don't, your children will find answers, just not through you. Now, Acts chapter 17, verse 11 praises the Bereans because they examined the scriptures every day to see what Paul said was true. Now, think about that. Even when hearing the Apostle Paul, they examined the messages carefully. They didn't accept blindly. They thought. And that's a very important piece of examining the Bible and looking at it and studying it. Questions that build thinking are actually incredibly important. So here's a few powerful types of questions that fathers can use at the dinner table. How about observation questions? What stood out to you today? This trains children to notice the world around them. Critically important. 2, reflection questions. What did you learn from that situation? What are we doing here? Well, we're trying to develop wisdom in them. How about 3, character questions? What do you think the right thing to do was in that situation? You see, this builds moral reasoning. And of course, faith questions. Where did you see God at work today, at school today? You see, this builds spiritual awareness. How about empathy questions? How do you think that person felt? What does this develop? It develops compassion. Questions, you see, shape minds. They invite participation and they open doors for wisdom. One of the greatest gifts that I think a father can give his children is this: undivided attention. When your child speaks and you truly listen, something powerful happens. They feel valued. They feel heard. They feel seen. And they feel safe. You know, James chapter 1, verse 19 says this: everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Notice the order in that. Listen first, speak second, anger last. You see, this principle alone could change who knows how many families, right? Well, it could certainly change social media. That goes without saying. And what about teaching your kids to disagree well? It's another lost skill in our culture, that idea of just being respectful in disagreement. Boy, do we struggle with this in the world today. You know, too many people believe that disagreement equals disrespect, but that's simply not true. Healthy societies require disagreement. The key here is how we do it. And the dinner table is the perfect place to model this. You see, when your children disagree with you, don't shut them down immediately. Ask them why. Help them explain their reasoning. Walk them through the issue or challenge. Show them how to weigh different perspectives and teach them this principle. You can challenge an idea without attacking a person. You see, that skill alone will set them apart in their life. It'll set you apart in yours. And really, what we need to do here is slow the world down, man. Conversation requires something rare today: time. You cannot have meaningful conversations while rushing because everything speeds up. You cannot shape thinking while multitasking. Conversation really requires slowing down. That's where the dinner table matters. We're not going for record time here at dinner of 5 minutes. We're going for, however long it takes. It's the perfect opportunity to slow down and listen because it creates space for ideas, space for reflection, space for questions. I think some of the most important conversations of your children's lives will happen in ordinary moments, between bites of food, between stories about school, between laughter and small frustrations. We just simply should not underestimate those moments because they are shaping our family's future. And as a father, you need to be the chief question asker. It's okay. Go ahead and steal it from me. I don't mind a bit. Be the chief question asker. Fathers often feel pressure to have all the answers. You shouldn't. You will never have all the answers. That's right. Pick yourself up off the floor now. You're not going to have all the answers, all right? But the real leadership skill is more about asking the right questions. Questions open doors. Questions really invite participation, and questions teach children to explore the truth. Imagine a home where questions are welcomed, where curiosity is encouraged, where thinking is valued. Well, that environment, friend, creates confident, thoughtful adults. Adults who don't panic when faced with hard questions. Adults who know how to seek wisdom. Now, let me give you something practical for the week ahead. Once a week, ask one meaningful question at the dinner table, just one. Something like, what does it mean to be a good friend? What does courage look like? What makes somebody trustworthy? What does forgiveness really mean? And let everyone answer. you'll be surprised at what comes out. These conversations stay with children and they shape them indefinitely. They form character. And that is critically important in this world. So what is the bigger vision here? We often talk about raising strong families. We should, and we need it. But strong families aren't built through strong conversations only. Families where it's all about where families explore ideas. Faith is discussed. Character is developed. Curiosity is encouraged. And those families will produce leaders, not loud leaders, thoughtful leaders, the kind of leaders that our culture desperately needs right now. So, man, here's my challenge for you this week at your next dinner together. Ask one meaningful question, just one. Put your phones down, turn the television off, and look your family in the eyes and start a conversation that really actually matters. Because the ability to think clearly, the ability to listen carefully, the ability to speak wisely, well, those skills are not learned on the internet. They are learned at home. And all fathers play a critical role in that formation. And if we want a generation that thinks deeply, lives wisely, and follows God faithfully, well, we must lead those conversations one dinner table at a time, one question at a time, one thoughtful moment at a time. You see, this is how families grow. That's how wisdom spreads. And that's how we raise a generation ready to lead and get back to the American family values that have made this country great and led us towards our 250th birthday. God bless you. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to talk more about this, reach out to me. My calendar's on my website at truemanlifecoaching.com. My email is mike@truemanlifecoaching.com. Reach out to me. Here's what I want from you. I challenge you, send me an email. Tell me how asking one question at dinner helped change that dinner table on that particular night. Send me these stories. I would love to hear from you and how this type of thing is helping change your family. One dinner table, one conversation at a time. Thank you for listening to the True Man Podcast. Boy, if you're listening on your phone right now, just grab that puppy and forward this podcast onto a buddy that you think would really enjoy these podcasts. I greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoyed today's show, please leave me a great review on your favorite podcast channel. All right. Now, here's what I want from you this week. Go out and take on that challenge and make this your very best week ever. God bless you, and thank you for listening.